historic Calgary Week. I would like to thank you for coming to the Alberta Family History Society and Calgary Public Library joint presentation, Starting a Family History. And now I would like to introduce your presenter. I've known Christine for over a decade. Professionally, she's given me invaluable assistance with my research. In her off time, she's been an enthusiastic volunteer on my public archaeology excavations, and she's fun to work with. Christine Hayes is a native Calgarian and graduate of the University of Calgary. She has been with the Calgary Public Library since card catalogs roamed the earth. She accidentally fell into the role of genealogy specialist and found her calling. Christine loves to snoop around in other people's lives and feels that genealogy is the perfect outlet for an otherwise illegal activity. She believes that telling the stories of our ancestors is the best way to keep our history alive. She is a committee chair with the Alberta Family History Society, and she is currently compiling a guide for genealogical research in Alberta. And now I will hand the Zoom microphone over to Christine.
Hello, welcome. I'm so glad to see you all here, sharing my passion for family history. I'm going to start right off sharing my PowerPoint presentation with you. And here we are. So, starting a family history without losing your mind. What we noticed when we were working at the library, remotely, of course, that lots of people were interested in their family histories. All of a sudden, we had the time and we had access to Ancestry, who generously provided us with access to Ancestry remotely, which wasn't the case before. We always said you were only allowed to have Ancestry at the libraries to keep you from getting stuck in your rabbit hole. But we had patrons who would sit outside the libraries and use the wireless in the middle of the night so that they could get these. So a lot of people jumped in right away and they wanted to try Ancestry, but what they found was often frustrating. And I want everybody to love this as much as I do. So, hang on here, my screen didn't advance. So I am Christine Hayes. I work for the public library. I have been here for a very long time. And I work in the Calgary Story Collection, which is excellent if you're doing research on Alberta history or anything, because we do research all over the world. We have resources for people researching all over the world. In many cases, what we do is find the records for you. And you'll find that genealogy, a lot of it is, where is everything? So this is not a new pursuit. We have been doing this since we opened our doors. At one point, getting a microfilm, which is, you see this article here, getting a microfilm was a newsworthy story. This is from the Herald, announcing that we'd gotten the microfilm for the census. This is the way we did things when I started. You had microfilm and microfilm readers, you had books, and you had forms where you would write away to people. This is from Finland, because of course, if you don't speak the language, you still want to request the things. So you'd fill out these forms and mail them away to municipalities and try to track down the records. And the records were pretty basic. You wanted sort of the basic stuff. So we're going to talk today about how things have changed, how things have stayed the same, and just a few pointers to get you started on using print and non-print sources for genealogy. Now, I can't tell you how important genealogical societies are. They are the people, they hold the records, they create the records. They are also the people who will listen to your stories. They provide education. And what I wanted to do was highlight the value that I find in my colleagues at the Genealogical Society by asking them, what would you have done differently if you were starting now, or what would you recommend that a new genealogist think about? So I put that out to my membership, and I got some very interesting answers, not many surprising answers, because I knew what they were going to say, but that's what this is structured around. And genealogical societies are facing a bit of a crisis now because of the onset of things like Ancestry. And it's not until people get really into their genealogy and get lost that they realize, hey, I need help. And so your local genealogical society is one of those places where you can go. So why do people look for their family history? Well, some people want to prove lineage. And when I started, that was a lot of what this was. People would be tracking down a noted relative or something, or they'd want to prove a lineage. There were a few hardcore genealogists, but most of the questions I got were, can I prove my descent from Marie Antoinette and things like that. Sometimes you might think that you're going to get an inheritance. You might want to nab an inheritance. You might want to have bragging rights for anything. I'm descended from, royalty, or I'm descended from people who survived on the prairies in the winter. I'm prouder of that. Some people want to say, I've got 10,000 names in my family tree. Whatever. I mean, this is all legit, right? Maybe you've heard about this little island off Scotland that is looking for its hereditary ruler. Maybe you want to prove your descent so you can be the ruler of a small country. Maybe you're just nosy. I mean, that's how I got into this. I was the kid who sat around the corner from the grown-ups when they were talking and eavesdropped on all of the family gossip. I found it fascinating because these people were different from me. They were trappers and farmers and poets and just really interesting people. So maybe you're just nosy. Maybe you have you are not living with the people who gave birth to you, and you want to find out about your birth family. You maybe want to tell your family story, which is, to me, the most valuable thing you could do, because everyone in Canada has a story to tell. And I think that the funnest and the neatest history is the story of the people, just not the prime ministers and the royalty. And I want to know about your people who came to Saskatchewan and built a sod hut and stayed. Those are the true heroes in mine. Maybe you have medical reasons. You want to track down causes of death, see if there's every man in my family died of heart disease. So maybe you just want to know. And maybe you're just a geeky researcher person who likes to dig around in old things. And any of these, any reason you have, it's a good reason. And I'm happy to help you. So first things first, just because it's royalty, I had to have a picture of the Prince of Wales. Talk to the members of your family. And this was number one. Everyone I asked said, I wish I'd talked more to the members of my family, and I wish I'd listened more when my grandma was talking. Some of us, it's too late for that. But if you have elders in your family, talk to them. Ask them questions, ask them to tell you what it was like. Even if you don't have elder members of your family, maybe you are the elder members of your family, let your family know that you are researching. I had this wonderful thing happen to me. I've been looking for this person in my mother's family tree. She was a cousin or a sister, or I don't know even the relationship, because I didn't even believe this person existed. But I'd been telling my mother and anybody who would listen that I am researching the family tree, especially on that side of my mom's family. And I wanted information about anything. And my mom's cousin was cleaning out her house because she'd cleaned out her mom's house. And when you get to my age, you realize that, this is a cumulative effect. That one member of the family downsizes and you as the historian will end up with everything. But she knew I was looking for this person. And when she was cleaning out her mom's stuff, found a photo of this mystery aunt or cousin who was a teacher in Saskatchewan, and all the kids were sent to live with her. So talk to your members of your family, let them know you're looking, because they may have stuff that you would like. They may have also been people doing family trees. I've got a cousin in Ohio who's got his side of the family done, and we are simpatico, and we share information all the time. Go through what you have. Ransack your closets, attics, hopes chests, photo albums, those boxes that your mom gave when she moved into the apartment, the things your brother said he didn't want when mom was cleaning out the house, and anybody. I mean, if you can sneak into somebody's attic while they're getting you tea, do that to see what you can find. There's going to be clues everywhere. And you may already have some of the documents. I didn't realize my mother had all of our birth certificates all folded up and put away in this little folder she had with all of our important documents. I didn't realize she'd kept them. because it costs money to get these documents, but this is a cheap way of getting it. You may also find things like medals. You may find I've got a dozen cups that my father-in-law won for running. I didn't realize he was a runner, and it says where he was at school and where he was running for. So there's always evidence. But start close. This is, I think, the thing that they were always saying is start close. All of this stuff will provide clues. Write it down. I wish I'd written more down. I wish I could write when I was eavesdropping, but I remembered a lot of the stories and a lot of the names, but write it down. Even if it seems weird or far-fetched, or write it down. There's always a kernel of truth in everything. And write it down, not on sticky notes in your wallet. You'll end up with the George Costanza wallet, and it doesn't lend itself to organization. Keep a notebook, paper, digital, have a place where you can put it down. I've got a file full of sticky notes because I didn't do this right, and I'm not a very organized person anyway. Periodically go through what you've got. You'll be surprised at what you are looking at. You may be looking at something and realize, oh, I hadn't noticed that before, but the people on that census record are related to us. I didn't know that. So write it down, always important. Keep a record. Also read a good how-to manual. You may not think that you're going to get serious, and you may think, oh, well, I just want to find this stuff. But start here, because you'll find out a lot about where to go, how to look, where things are, and you'll find out the basics, because at some point you may say, I want to get serious about this and maybe publish something, or I want to get my certification in the Genealogical Society. You'll learn how to record names. And honestly, even though it sounds boring, when you go back and you find that people have given their family names to their children or stuff, you always capitalize the family name. And then you can distinguish between the people who are named that and the people whose family names are that. Also dates. I used to record dates one way. I record them a different way. Now I record them like this, because I don't know. Is 0107, is that January 7th or July 1st? So I record my dates like this, and there is a way to do it. It's not, I mean, this isn't going to end you, but it just makes it a little bit easier. Learn about primary and secondary sources. This gets very important in genealogy, because how much can you trust something? What is a primary source? Generally, a primary source is anything that's made at the time that an event happens in genealogy. So a registration of a birth, registration of a death, those kinds of things are primary. And what are you looking for? If I want something, where is it? And what kind of resources are available? If you go looking for the 1871 Irish census, you're out of luck. It blew up. So you have to know what you're looking for. So I don't want y'all to be banging your heads against a wall and saying, I need this, but I'm not finding it on Ancestry. So make sure you're looking, or you know what's there before you start looking. And cite your sources. This was another one that came up really, really high on the list of genealogy recommendations. Notice that I yelled this one, cite your sources. I cannot even count how many times someone has come to me and said, I think I need to know more about this source because I think there's more in it. Can you tell me what this page came from? Well, it probably came from one of the 1,200 genealogy books I have, but write it down. Ancestry is a giant growing glob, and it's never the same twice. The search that got you what you wanted today may not get it tomorrow. So Ancestry isn't a citation, because if you need to find the record again, you need to have this much information. Maybe not this much, but you need to know that you found the record on Ancestry, but that it was in the database World War I draft registration cards, and this is how I searched it. So, I mean, if you want to get into serious, this is actually for genealogical standards, this is beautiful, but you may not want to get that serious, but you need to know what the record was, who has it is always good because, you know, I mean, at some point we may be living in caves and doing this. We don't know. So you want to be able to find the microfilm because microfilm will persist, I swear. Another one that was really high on the list was develop an organizational strategy early on. This isn't an actual picture of my desk, but I've got to say it's pretty close. And I pity anybody who has to share a desk with me. My organization strategy is not great. I am not an organized person. This is mostly what I do. I pile things up. Now I can find things, but sometimes it takes me days. So if you can early on even just say, I'm going to put all the stuff about so-and-so in this file, I'm going to put all the stuff about so-and-so in this file, just develop something that's going to help you to find things. If you get deep into this, especially, I've seen organization systems that would curl your hair. They're so organized. It frightens me. So have a look and just decide what works for you. I'm not into color coding. If I have anything I have to remember, I'm not good at. So, you know, a file folder with somebody's name on it is an organizational strategy. So develop that fairly early on because you will accumulate tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. There are actual websites. The Organized Genealogist is a Facebook page run by a guy who wrote a book called Organizing Your Genealogy Project. It's a fabulous, fabulous thing to give you some idea. It can get carried away, but you want to be able to find what you've got. Okay, so now I've yelled at you a little bit about citing your sources and all of that technical stuff. So now we're going to get into the fun part, at least the fun part if you're, you know, like me. Number one, this is something that we all fall into at some point. You find somebody who's got the same name as you, and you've got to find out how you're related to them. So you start with them. That is never a good thing to do because you put a lot of work into this and then you find out, nope, sorry, wrong family. You've spent your time researching. Now, I don't mind doing that because, of course, I like to snoop around in other people's lives, as I mentioned. But if you're doing your own genealogy, it's always best to start with what you know. Start with you, your mom and dad, and your grandparents, if you have that. Lots of people don't even have their grandparents' name. I didn't know my grandmother's name wasn't Nan. I didn't know that until I was like 12 because everybody called her Nan. But her name was Rita, and Nan was what I called her when I was a baby. So write all that down and write down anything you know, birth dates, death dates, do you know anything? Write down what you know and just sort of start with yourself and work back. Write down what you know about you too, because you may be one of the ones who's blessed with a descendant who wants to do research and carry on your research. And it really helps if they've got the information that they need about you too. And so write down what you know about the people in your tree. So your mom was born in Bergen, dad was born somewhere in Ireland. Good luck to you. Grandma's name was really Euphemia, not Fuzzy. Grandpa had a tail that could be important. Grandma was born in a covered wagon somewhere outside of Regina. Now, this is stuff you might hear. This is stuff that might not be true, but it's the stuff that you remember. And there's always, always, always a kernel of truth. I still don't know where my grandmother was born, so I'm just assuming she was born somewhere in a covered wagon, but I think I'm a bit late for that. And this is a form. There are forms and things available. I'll show you when we do Ancestry, just a quick Ancestry thing. I'll show you where you can find these kinds of forms. Family Search and Ancestry are two really good sources for forms, because a family group sheet can help. And you can create this if you want. If you're really digitally savvy and you like Excel or something, you can do this in Excel. You can do this in your software. If you choose to go software. But this is a really, really good way to keep track of families. This one's a really nice one. This is from somebody who's Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They are big players in the genealogy provision of genealogical resources, but they're also very dedicated to the pursuit. It's part of their religion is to connect the families. And so this is a chart into the that's what the temple means. So this is a really good way to keep track of families. It doesn't have to be this, and have photos and things. It's nice if you can. but how many people have photos of anything back a generation or more? But this keeps your family information together, and it can get confusing, especially in some families. I've got a friend whose husband is Scottish, and all of the men in his family are called William, every last one of them, and they go by their second names, but it gets really confusing, and this will help keep the people apart. And it gets, once you get further back, you get more people. It's a good way to keep track. The other thing, and this is, I added this one in because I work from the other side as well. I work helping people to do their genealogy, and a lot of people come in asking, I want everything on my grandfather. We probably don't have everything on your grandfather, but we can help. But you need to look at what you know, look at what you already have, and then formulate a research question. And essentially, I always tell people this, that essentially genealogy research is like doing a master's degree in a way, because you're researching primary source material. Don't let that scare you, but you're researching primary source material, and you're researching, formulating a thought, a question. What do I want to know? So I want to know where my grandmother was born. I really, really want to know where my grandmother was born. So I'm going to look at what is available and where will I find that information. And the way I do that is I learn about the records. And again, I'll just all harkens back to reading that good book, reading the Family Search Wiki on the area you're researching, just knowing what is on every record. I know more about like dates of release of records, than is healthy. So you need to know what is on the records. What is on a death registration from here? Is the date of birth, name of next of kin, what's on it? And then you can say which record is going to be the best source, really, for what I want to know. Do I want to learn a birth register? Do I take the birth on a marriage certificate? Is that the accurate birth date? Is it an accurate birth date on the census? Well, no, not necessarily. Which record will have the information I need? Now, some records will provide clues, so that's good. But what record? Best to hone your question down and narrow in on the information that you need. Where are the records? That is half of the job of a genealogist, is tracking the records down. Who has them? And how do I get them? Do I have to travel there? Do I have to request a microfilm online? Do I have to view them through Ancestry? How do I get at them? And that's where, your genealogy societies and your librarians and archivists are very helpful. Records, when we talk about them, what are we talking about when I say records? Well, anything, really. And when you start getting into advanced research, you can really start looking at some really bizarro records, patent records. I found an ancestor in a patent record. He vouched for somebody in this patent record. Fascinating, but it told me where he was at the time, which was great. So it can be birth, death, marriage registrations. Those are the gold standard. That's the gold stuff. And church records. Those are the things we want. Immigration records, when you live in a place like Canada where everybody except the First Nations people are from somewhere else, immigration records play a large role in the research. Census records. Census records are great. To a point. They list the names of people, and often in family groups, they list all kinds of weird and wacky information. And it's there, the family. That's what hooked me, is I saw my great grandfather and his family on the census. I thought, wow, I didn't know this. I need to go further. So that's this place where we often start, just because it gives you that I found a record. Wills and other legal documents. Wills are really good because sometimes they will give you information about people who are getting out of the estate. So that will mean often direct you to family or friends, which are also valuable in researching. I said census twice. Voters lists, military records, land records, homestead records are great because sometimes they will actually have a lot of documents attached to them. Citizenship papers, a will if the person died before it was proved up, records of the land, which I find fascinating, what they had to do to the land, and year by year. You can also find people who will vouch for them. So I found one of my ancestors was like a pastor or something, and he was vouching for all the people who had homesteaded, and his name came up in the search for the homestead records. Newspapers, which are, I try to stay away from them, and like addicted to newspapers. I will sometimes wander off into the depths of the Strathmore Standard and just think, wow, this is so cool. I've got to be careful what I share because not everybody feels that way. Cemetery transcriptions, find out where they're buried. And this is kind of what they look like. So the one up in the left here, this guy is a marriage record from a marriage registration from Ontario. This is an attestation paper for John George Pattison, who the Pattison Bridge is named for, died in the First World War. This is a census that shows my grandmother somewhere in here in 1921. This is a land certificate. This is a will. It's Shakespeare's will, but that doesn't, that's, you might encounter something like that. So where do we keep them? Well, they're everywhere. But the best places to start, libraries. I had to say that because I work for one. But it's true. Libraries have not just the physical resources, but they also have the human resources too. There's always some. Libraries attract people with wonderful, wide, varied interests. And so there's always somebody who knows something about what you're looking for. And generally, we can track those people down. So libraries are a really, really good resource. Even if they don't have what you need, they can often help you find what you need. Archivists are the same. They have things. Archives are different from libraries in that archives sort of focus on things that aren't published, whereas libraries have things that are published and sometimes things that aren't, but mostly archives will have unpublished things like the papers of certain societies or papers if your family lived in an area for a long time and was pioneering. Archives can hold their papers. They may have been donated. Genealogical societies, they keep and they create records. Historical societies are great resources because they often know the settlers of a time, of a place, they have directories, all kinds of things that they can help you with, and they can give you the lay of the land. Museums sometimes have stuff. My husband's grandfather's motorcycle is in the museum in the little town where he practiced medicine. They are either digitized. They can be digitized, they can be free or commercial. So those are the online databases that you can access, things like Ancestry and Find My Past. Some are free, some charge. So they're everywhere, literally. And that's why sometimes you need people that guide you. So when you're researching, familiarize yourself with the time and the place of the ancestor you're researching. Another suggestion that I was interested, because I don't do this, have a map nearby. If you have access to a historical atlas, especially if you're researching places in Europe, Eastern Europe in particular, familiarize yourself with the time and place. Records are created by the people who are running the place. So if your Ukrainian ancestor was born in what was then Poland, you will need to look in Poland for the records. So have a map. The other thing is people will often go where they can. So you're looking for a marriage registration in a particular county. Well, maybe the nearest church wasn't in that county. So you get to know the lay of the land. And when they talk about a place, is that close or not? So you can have a look. Read some books about the history. That's always a good idea. If you have people who settled in Ontario, I read a book on settling of the Huron Tract. That's where one of my ancestors settled originally. So I read that book. There are also tons of really good wikis put out by Family Search in particular, which is the LDS, their digitized collection, and their website has really good guides to researching in different places. So familiarize yourself a little bit with the area. And it doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment to figuring this out, but you may fall into the trap and have to research heavily into that. Online sources, because of course, back in the day when I started, it did not seem to me that providing access to archives was a business plan, that it would have ever gotten you anything other than ridicule, quite frankly. But hallelujah that they've done this. So Ancestry is the big player, and they are the ones that advertise, and they are the ones that I take a little bit of exception to, because they say that you can just type your name in and pop, there you go, there's your family tree. Well, that's not technically true, but they do provide access. And if you have a library card with Calgary Public Library, you currently have access to the Ancestry Library Edition, which is wonderful. It's got all of the records that you could ever want, that they have. Find My Past, if you're doing European, especially particularly British Isles, Ireland, Ireland and England, and some Wales. Find My Past is good. We don't have a subscription. You'd have to pay for that one. My Heritage is the same. Scotland's People, if you're Scottish, that's run by the government, the Records Office. Archive Digital, if you're Swedish. Family Search, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They had, before we had digitized records, they had millions of reels of microfilm in Granite Mountain, this vault, and you could request it. And they had the records, the Ancestry, essentially, the same kind of records. Family Search is free. You just need to sign up for a free membership, or not a membership, a free account, and you can search their sources. And sometimes they have what Ancestry doesn't have. So it's, I always try to use free first. And libraries and archives. Now, the new business model for Ancestry is partnering with libraries and archives to digitize their records and making the records available for free on Ancestry, and also free on the libraries and archive sites. Now, the catch is that Ancestry pays to have them indexed, so that you can look at the records, but you can't search them. So, but generally it's free. And if you've got the time, it's worth a look at the library and archives in the area where you're researching. So some tips about genealogy databases, because we really are talking about libraries the size of Library of Congress, I guess, or I can't even, just dropping you in there and saying there's a book in there. It's got information on your family. It has a red cover. Off you go, but you can't look at the catalog. So it's huge, and it's tricky, and it's fabulous, but you have to know how to use it to get the most from it. So the first thing that I do, because I do run into people sometimes who say, I can't find the birth record for my dad, or I can't find the marriage record for somebody. Is it actually supposed to be in the database? And Ancestry makes it quite easy to check. So check and see if the record you want is there. And the way to, look at the how-to links, anything on the database. Every database operates differently. They all have different things, different peculiarities. So look at the how-to links on the web page if they're there. Ancestry has a YouTube channel with classes on how to use it. It's a fabulous thing, because it teaches you how to get at what you really want, rather than just I have John Smith in my family tree and I've got 8 billion hits here. So, and remember, when you're searching a database, you're actually searching an index, which has been either human generated or it's optical character recognition. And the spelling may be nowhere near, it may not even look like anything. And sometimes you have to go directly to the record and search it. The way Ancestry does this is they source it off the continent, and people who aren't familiar with naming traditions or necessarily, or familiar with even the last names, may have a difficulty generating this information. So keep that in mind when you're looking at it. So when you're looking, be very creative about how you spell the name. You would be shocked. You will be shocked when you go in there and start looking. Try using wildcards. Try using different kinds of searches. Some databases will let you search by first names. If you're looking in a small spot and you've got an ancestor, I had an ancestor that apparently was called Clarence. I don't think that's his name, but there weren't an awful lot of people born in the county named Clarence. So I could search by him and by a date. They're very fluid. They let you start big, narrow down, start narrow, widen out. So keep in mind that just because you didn't find it the first time, jiggle around with it, adjust your search. play with it a little bit and tried all kinds of different searches. Some collections in an Ancestry, they upload what they have and then they go about indexing it. So the records are available, you just don't have indexes or searching. So if you are looking for a marriage or something and it's not there, but they do have you can find that in their list. If they have it on in the database, just not indexed yet, you can go through it like microfilm. I remember going through the 1911 census this way because it took a long time to get that indexed. So you can browse it like microfilm. Family Search is really good for that. They have the records, but they're volunteer indexing. So it takes time. It takes time to get the records up. Check to see if what you're searching is actually just an index, because some Ancestry has a lot of stuff that's just indexes. They give you the instructions on how to get the record, usually in the box underneath the search. It tells you how you get the records. You'll find the index, but not the records. Alberta's like that. You can find the index, but you can't find the records themselves. You have to actually go and request them. And always, always, always look at the original. This is what Ancestry looks like. Now, most of us just pop in to this and we hit this guy right here. Oh, I missed my pen. And we pop here. It just, oh, sorry, my pen's not working. We pop in there and we just start searching. And you can end up with over 1 million hits. This is a massive database. What I suggest you do is you go here first, which is under the search menu. Go to your card catalog and enter into the search Ontario marriages, Montana births, and then you will see the databases that they have. I always like to check up here the new collections. What do they have that's new? The new collections, are they indexed or is this just film? They also have message boards. That's where people who are doing research post their questions, their family histories, all kinds of information. You can find a lot from there. I found out that the cemetery that my family in Ontario is buried in is actually under the parking lot of the church. So that's why I can't find the websites. Forms are up here as well. And this is where you'll find the forms like pedigree charts, family history, family sheets, and research logs. But if you're really into this, research logs help you keep track of where you've looked. It also has different information about the different sets of records, and it also has a link to their updated stuff. So here is 5-minute find, sending documents home from the library. So those little learning moments are great. Have a look at them, see what's available. So that's just that. I just used Ancestry because it's something we have a subscription to, and it's well set out, and it's probably what you will start with, and most people do. So when I said look at the index or look at the original, here I've got an index that's Ashfandira from the 1881 census. And you can see where the problem lies here, right? This is the name, this is the family here. So I knew that these people were here. I knew where they were, and I wanted to find them. But I don't know anybody named Ashfandira. This is actually Archie Van Dyne is what the name is. And that's him right there, Arch. But looking at this, I see, oh, Charles, Rebecca, James, Frank, and Ash, Archie, and Spartan, which that has to be Georgiana. That's the only way. But I knew this family, and I thought, oh, that's got to be them. Even though I can't see the last name, I can see the first name. And the ages are about right. This is my great-grandfather, Archibald. So sometimes just look at the census. The other thing about looking at the census is there's often stuff in there that's not in the index. This is an 1851 census, parts of which exist, but not many for Ontario. And this lists what kind of a house are the people living in. I always find this kind of stuff really interesting. There's the nosy in me. So this is a person in a stone cottage. This is a person in a log house. This is a person in a shanty. So, and it also here, if you've got any lunatics in your family, that's there. So they wanted to see if there were any people with what they would have called, what we call today, challenges, deaf or blind or lunatic. So, and it was on this that I found when I was looking for Pat Burns' family, that where Pat Burns lived, there's a little note, remarks by the guys, because he had to hire a translator because everybody spoke Irish, which of course that's true, right? They all came from Ireland. They all speak Irish. Didn't even think of that. So you find all kinds of wonderful things in here that are extra. There, you see the geek in me's coming out now. But you do need to keep in mind that not everything is on the internet, that you still will be researching using microfilm, which you can request through interlibrary loan, and books. We have a huge collection of things in the Calgary Story Collection here that are indexes and records and how to find things and where stuff is that haven't been digitized yet. That's why they're still on the shelf. You can look in catalogs at archives and they'll say microfilm real number, and you still need to order stuff on microfilm. And we do that all the time. We can order it from, well, not right now because nobody's loaning anything, but pretty quick here. We will be back in the microfilm and book requesting. And so keep that in mind when you're looking in your libraries and archives, that it is entirely possible that you may need to put in an interlibrary loan. Most library systems will do that for you. So keep that in mind. If there's something that you want to look at, somebody's all written the history of your family. If we can get it, we will certainly try. And we do still have books. This is a picture from the old library. You can tell by the nasty old shelving. But the Upper Canada Land books for Ontario, those aren't online as far as I know. So if you need that kind of thing, look in our library catalog or look in a world online catalog like WorldCat. You can just fire in Upper Canada Land books, and there they are. And we still have microfilm readers. We have these very microfilm readers. They're attached to a computer. When they work, they're fabulous. You can save things to USB. You can print things. I'm not going to say anything about them. I'm having a thing with them these days. So now I've got a few rules that I've put together with suggestions from my colleagues, how to avoid genealogical angst, because you will get into this. You will start looking and you will fall into a hole, or you will hit a brick wall. So this just a few rules that I have that I've come across in my years of helping people and that I've come across in my own research. Just because you spell your name that way doesn't mean everybody spells it that way, not even in your own family. And the other thing is, especially as we go back further in time, literacy rates weren't what they are now. Language barriers, somebody hears something, they write down what they hear. There's also the Micmac controversy, where you always spelled your name M-A-C, but they may not have heard that. They may have been Irish. They may have spelled their name M-C. You just need to be creative with names. Don't think that things always were what they are now. So, I mean, that might be obvious, but you know, it's something I didn't think about either. I thought, oh, it's all going to be the same. Read names phonetically. And this came up because a member that I was speaking to, of AHS that I was speaking to, said her husband, who is Latvian or Lithuanian, she knows how the family pronounced the name, but they've been in Canada for a while. And very few of them spoke the language. She was speaking to a relative that they discovered, and he said his name phonetically, and she realized that the pronunciation was very different when it was spoken by someone who was, and so when she started researching the family, she used the phonetic transcription and found more people, because the person listening to the person speaking in Lithuanian was not listening. It was not Lithuanian himself, so wrote it down phonetically. So it's an interesting thing, but keep that in mind. And the person who was taking the information may not be hearing the exact spelling. Don't believe everything you read, and especially this is true when you go onto Ancestry and you click on that family tree link, and other people have put up a tree. I've seen trees where my grandparents are their own children. So you have to be very, very careful. And always when you're using somebody else's research, be very careful. If they haven't got 3 sources, it's not reliable, I think. If they don't have any sources, take it with a grain of salt and then verify it on your own with documents that you find. And that's what I mean. Be careful when using other people's research, even if it's published, because people will publish their family histories with all kinds of far out claims. And the other thing is local histories that take that all with a grain of salt. It's only as soon as a human being gets introduced, we have opened a spot for error. So if you think of the census, there's like 27 spots where errors could be made when we were looking at the records. Always look at the original. I told you why. If it is a record from another country, it will probably be in another language. And don't laugh, because I have had people say, why is this in French? It's in France, or Latin. That's the other thing. We do have directories on how to decipher foreign language birth certificates, baptismal certificates, and Latin for family historians. So if you need it and Google Translate isn't doing it, we've got stuff. Verify, verify, verify. And I say that 3 times because honestly, I don't consider anything true until it's verified 3 times in 3 different documents. That may be impossible to do, like with my grandmother, whose birth date changes every time I look her up, but you have to come to some kind of agreement, but verify whatever you find. It's not true until you've got the documentation in your hand. And really keep in mind that the record you need may not be on the internet. And just because documents and researching documents isn't complicated enough, we throw DNA into the mix. This is a really excellent resource for a lot of people, especially if you're interested in your ethnicity, if you're interested in medical history, and if you have a really good tree. You're not going to get, 23andMe is not going to send you a form saying, here are all your relatives, and you're descended from Marie Antoinette. They just won't. You will still have to have documents and a tree online to get any value from DNA as far as family history is concerned. You will find a lot of cousins. I know people in the society we have a special interest group that does DNA. And if you're interested in that, I suggest just looking in to see what the Alberta Family History Society DNA group is doing, because they are so knowledgeable. When I was in biology, they knew we had mitochondria. We just didn't know what it did. Now people are tearing it apart to look at the DNA. So I'm sort of, this is where my technical, I'm a technical Luddite here. I don't have a DNA profile. So this is great. And it's also very good if you're doing research for people who are disconnected from their birth families. But again, you need to have the documentation, and you're only being matched with people who have tested. So if you're interested in this, look at the coverage of the place that does the DNA. So where are they testing? If your family is mostly from some place that doesn't have a great deal of DNA testing done, you're not going to turn up a lot of matches. So it's only the people who are tested. They don't necessarily go around and test random strangers on the street. So if you haven't tested, your DNA won't be there, hopefully. And also, when you're looking at the different providers, look at what they're doing with your DNA. There's been a lot in the newspapers and news about what happens with your DNA when they're using it for cold case files and things. Not that you're criminals, but you've got to keep in mind that right now this is the infancy of this particular technology. But just check out how the data is being used and how they protect it for you. So we're coming to the end. I just want to say again, genealogical societies are sort of we're in a bit of a tough state. It's hard attracting people, but genealogical societies are a wealth of information. And even if you're not a member, get in touch with the Genealogical Society in your neighborhood where you're researching. These are the experts. And just because we say it's Alberta Family History Society doesn't mean we just research Alberta. They research people are everywhere. So have a peek in, even if you're not going to join. We offer courses. And they offer courses now virtually. Ontario Genealogical Society offers virtual courses. You can just register from anywhere. You don't have to necessarily be a member. And the other thing I love about genealogy societies is you want to start talking about genealogy, 9 people out of 10 are going to feign death, so you'll go away. They will not do that. They will not roll your eyes and they will not feign death, so you'll go away. Remember, librarians are your friends. Archivists are your friends. Ask. Even though I did sort of poke fun at some people, there are no dumb questions, really. If you didn't know, I'm happy to help you. So remember that the librarian is your friend. We are experts at tracking stuff down. So just if you have a question, don't ever, and this is for everything, don't ever hesitate to talk to your librarian and ask a question. We do this because we love to answer questions. So please. And keep an eye out for classes in your area. We do family history coaching, which is a one-on-one coaching in partnership with Alberta Family History Society. And we're going to start them up again in September. And hopefully by then we will all be in person so you can come in. And we'll also, I think, maybe keep the virtual thing too, so that we can get a wider variety of interactions here. Monthly Alberta Family History Society, I'm the program committee chair for that. And we do a lot of interesting programs on researching and history and all kinds of stuff that you'd be interested in. And there are also online courses from various societies, as I said, that are offered virtually. There are places like Ancestry.com. You don't have to have a membership to look at their videos on how to do genealogy. And it's not just using Ancestry. It's also very helpful. The Family History Center, which is the Latter-day Saints, offers free courses. And you get into specialized research, like specialized areas, that's where you're going to find the information on researching specific records. And that's it. This is my favorite family tree because it's it's funny because Grandpa has a tail. See, so this is it should be fun. This is something. This is because you want to do it. This is not something you have to do. It's something you want to do. So we want you to love it. And because I talked about a lot of different things, I've got this website. This is a list that I've put on our BiblioCommons website. I realized when I put the thing up, it's really, really long. So I just put my address at the bottom. If you're interested in, I can send you this link. Send me an email at this address and I'll send you the link. And I'll also send you a copy of my guidelines to avoid angst. If you were here, I would have, I'll give you all kinds of handouts. But so get in touch with me. And also, if you have questions, something I can't answer here, something that comes up, something specific, just get in touch with me. This is what I do for a living. And believe me, I just don't tell anybody I do it because I don't want anybody to get my job. So please feel free. And that is me. So thank you all very much for listening. I haven't been watching the chat or the questions, so I'm going to look at that now.
We do have a few questions. I can read those out to you.
Yes, please. That'll be great.
The first one is from Anita, and she asks, can I access Ancestry from home using my library card, and how?
Yes, you can. The way you do it is you go to calgarylibrary.ca, and using our drop-down menu in the left-hand side of the page, it's the three little lines. We call it the hamburger. Go to the Read, Learn, Explore, and then Digital Library. Then you're in the digital library. You can search for Ancestry. You have to go through it that way because that's our database. You have to be in there, and you have to go through our IP so that they know your library card holder. And so, when you do that, then you can do all the searching. It's not exactly the same as the one you would have if you paid, but it has all the records you would have. We don't have the newspapers part of it, and you can't upload anything, but you can access all of the records.
Awesome, thank you. The next one is from May. How can I best chart and present a family where the patriarch or matriarch had multiple family units, for example, more than one husband/wife?
There are ways to do that. I'm going to refer you to the some of the wikis because there is charting for all kinds of families, because families are, when I look at this, I know that this is Eurocentric and that this is Western concepts of family, that other cultures' family concepts are not the same as ours. I just noticed that most everybody who's here, sort of a Western family. So yes, there's all kinds of things like adoptive families. there's all kinds. And when you look at the charts, or you go to Ancestry and look at the charts, you'll see that there are adopted families, there are stepbrothers, stepsisters, and there's methods for doing that. So I'm going to refer you to just like the charts and stuff on Ancestry. And if that doesn't help, just email me and I will send you the links.
Great. Jen asks, are cemeteries a good source of information?
Cemeteries can be. We've got here at the library, we've got a fiche that was put together by the Alberta Family History Society on Burnsland Cemetery, where they actually gave them access to the burial records, not the headstones. For the most part, what you find is cemetery transcriptions. That's just people go through and look for the headstones, which can give you information. But if you have access to the burial record, which we do for Burnsland, it tells you who owns the plot. When the person was died, when the person buried, and anybody buried with them in the same plot. So they can be a very, very helpful. I mean, they can just show you the dates, but they can also be very helpful. And the new sites like Find a Grave and Billion Graves, which are linked through Ancestry, they also have the ability to upload information. So pictures, stories, family histories, sometimes you will find on things like Find a Grave.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Are British military records available through the library?
Some British military records are available. World War I records, unfortunately, got blown up in World War II. So there's a few. There's things like medal records, and there's some, I think the Air Force records, some of them exist. I was doing research on an RAF guy, or RFC he was. And I found something in the National Library or the National Archives in Britain, and had them send it to me, and it was like one page, just his name that he was in it. But I believe to get access to the military records, there are some in Ancestry. Find My Past has lots, but check first with the British National Archives, the National Archives in Britain. They have a really, really good guide on researching military records. And I would start with them because they also hold the records. So have a peek. Great.
We have a member who's asked if we can share the link with them that you had shared in your last slide.
Yeah.
What we can do is we can share that link via email, so we can send out an email after the program to all of our attendees, so that way.
Oh, that would be excellent. Yeah, that would be great.
So we are coming close to the end time of our program. I would like to thank you, Christine, for taking the time and spending the last 50 minutes and sharing your knowledge and information with us. And
Always
also
happy.
thank you. And also our attendees for being with us this afternoon. If you are interested in any of the other Historic Calgary Week programs, please feel free to visit calgarylibrary.ca to register. And now I'll just pass it over to Sherry to close us off for the afternoon.
Thank you, Christine, my library friend. I have some new questions for you. And thank you, Hamza, for your help today. And thank you to our viewers for joining us for this presentation. Please remember to check out our website at chinookhistory.ca for information regarding all Historic Calgary Week programs, virtual and in person. You will also find a listing of our valuable supporters and how to join our society and how to support our programs. Thanks.